We're glad to see that everyone's distributed themselves around the tables, which is fabulous because no one table will have sufficient goodies for hordes of people. But equally, there is a whole pile of things all to get held together in a paper clip because you're going to have to do a little bit of work this morning. Not onerous, but you're going to have to do something. So obviously, I'm really pleased to see there is a decent spread of our folk knotted around. But that's not quite yet. So Hannah, are you on the... So, in case you haven't sort of vaguely twigged, it's all about the work of angels this morning. And just to remind you today that the angels don't just live in heaven. They don't just live in heaven. They come down from heaven to earth to bring God's messages to us. And we're coming into that time of year, aren't we, where angels are all around us. Images of angels are everywhere. They're on cards, they're on wrapping paper, there are ornaments on Christmas trees, Christmas decorations in your house. You know, almost every home in the country will have a picture or a figure of an angel in it somewhere. Angels are the really acceptable side of Christmas, aren't they? And that celebration that we have, that Christmas message, angels feature in it big time. And angels are the acceptable face of it to the rest of the world. But the Bible is not just full of references around Jesus' birth to angels. It's littered with references to angels and other angelic beings. But just not the beautiful females with wings and halos and harps that we so often see in the images around us. They're not usually that kind of angel. Biblical angels, you see, are more often seen as male, usually, not always, but they are. Sometimes they are really powerful beings. They're frequently quite alarming, but they are often beautiful too, and blazed in light. Yet, at the same time, they can be seen as ordinary people, looking just like you and me, deliberate, and they all have one purpose: to deliver God's message to his people that he wants to break in and get them to take notice of what he's saying. You can't mistake an angel, and then therefore you will listen to the message. So, those of us who have been doing the Immersed Bible reading book this autumn have seen angels right from the very beginning. Angels appeared to Abraham in the form of ordinary men in the desert, the three strangers that they welcomed and they treated to hospitality. Jacob had many encounters with angels, and one in particular was a dream where he dreamt of seeing messengers going up and down the stairs to heaven. And Juliet smiled because in our group this week we looked at the book of Numbers and we read a very extraordinary tale of a talking donkey who saw an angel 3 times before Balaam, his human master, did. If the Wednesday group, if you haven't got there yet, there's a big chunk of the Bible, and I had totally forgotten about that particular story of Balaam and his talking donkey and his interaction with Balak. So angels appear all sorts of places to all sorts of people. And biblical angels have a wonderful ministry to us. So not just in the Bible, they are here and now. And they protect us at times. Other times they work with us. But they deliver God's messages to us. And we have to remember too that angels are real. You know, they ministered to and with Jesus when he was on earth. And that word angel means messenger. So this morning we're going to look at the top 3 types of angelic messages in the Bible. Okay, there are lots of different ones, but some are more frequent than others, and we're going to look at the top 3. So we're going to do a bit of a countdown. But this is where you're going to do some work. Hannah, if you can go to the next slide. We're going to, within our, as we sort of time together, we're going to read all of those books those readings from the Bible. They're all from the book of Acts. And it's probably not surprising that Acts is full of references to angels, but these will all be in your little packs. So, can you go to the next one? So, these are your instructions which will be left on there. If you're online, you will know that I have sent out as well similar material so you can do this at home. You just have to look up on your own in the Bibles. So, on your tables, in that little pack with a paperclip on it, besides the pictures of angels, there are the top three most common angels' messages, and they're on little sort of squares of paper. And there are 3 testimonies, and there are lots of Bible readings. Okay, so what I would like you to do is order your messages, which ones you think is the top 1, 2, 3. Find the Bible readings that go with it and the most relevant testimony that's printed out. So there will be 1 testimony, 1, 2, or 3, depending on which paper it is. And there is 1, 2, or 3 relevant Bible readings for each message. So think about ordering those into your top 3, which would come to first, second, and third. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do that. Yeah?
Pick one around it, and we'll see which heading we think belongs to. Okay, this is Acts chapter 5, verse 20. Then the high priest and all of his associates, who were members of the party of the Sadducees, were filled with jealousy. They arrested the apostles and put them in the public jail. During the night, an angel of the Lord opened the door of the jail and whispered, "Go and stand in the temple courts," he said, "and tell the people the full message of this new life." Speak up. You haven't got a lot of time.
Because I don't quite understand what you mean by that. So there are 3 headers that are waiting for anything. That's the bit that I'm missing. They have to, okay. So they have to answer, they've got to decide which of those
Acts chapter 12, verse 5 and 7. So people was kept in prison between praying, but the church was earnestly praying to God for him. The night before Herod was to bring him to church. The pigs were sleeping between 2 soldiers bound with 2 chains. The sentries stood guard within. Suddenly, an angel of the Lord appeared, and the light shone in the cell. He struck the pigs on their heads and woke them up. Quick, get up, he said, and the chains fell off Peter's. So he woke them up. this one, I think it's fairly obvious, but now I urge you to keep up your courage. It's not one of them will be lost, only the ship will be destroyed. Last night an angel of death God who is I am, and him I serve. Simon said, do not be afraid. God has chosen to defend the right to bring themselves. Keep up your courage. Nay, I pray of God. This one, I'm pretty sure is big enough, and I'm just going to Astrophane, and I mentioned the Lord said to him, go south down Desert Road, run from Jerusalem to Gaza. So he started out, and then in the church of Peter, the eunuch of great importance, the Queen of England, the eunuch had gone to Jerusalem to worship, and he was now seated in his carriage. He was reading aloud from the book of the prophet Isaiah. The Holy Spirit said to him, go over and along beside the carriage. Quickly, reading from the book of Isaiah. Do you understand what the reading of man said? Someone comes to me, and the Holy Spirit said, come to the carriage and sit there. Yeah, I mean, so. Right, so I mean, what is the as a people, it's not out there, it's a lady writes, when I was a child, I was in the hospital because of the bone tumor in the leg and the schedule to have it very happy to go. My parents are so consumed in their own problems, I know that they have torn up that and still felt so alone. There was nowhere to turn. I was only 14, so young and so scared. One night, shortly before I went back to bed to wait for the amputation of my leg, God did something very special for me. I went to bed, it was awakening. I remember feeling so smart.
Mind you, I'm not sure, don't be afraid for about shipwreck, but you will surely stand trial before
At the end of my bed. The beautiful person dressed in all white.
You might be correct, who knows? It's just smiling face.
He called my name and he said to me, be not afraid, the Lord has said it. He said that yes, I was to be afraid, but I would not die. I was to trust God always. I would be all right. He will take care of you. Thinking about quite really. Never afraid about losing my leg. I've done a lot of things in my life. I feel so privileged and God chose times when no one else could do it. I still remember the experience. I think we should start. Yeah. Visiting by the sea deputy, continuing with his training, and we went to a home. As I was walking away from the house, I heard a voice as clear as I've ever heard a voice that said, go to the house next door. So I went into the house, not knowing who was there and not holding my hand to the door, we told him we were visiting from the church and asked him to speak to me. He was very kind and said, come on in. You're just so hungry to receive Christ. We led him through the plan of salvation. prayed and invited Jesus to come to us. After we had finished the day, now I want to tell you something. Last week I went to the doctor's X-ray on chest and told me spots on my leg. And the man said, I was so afraid. I laid in bed and looked up and seen and I said, God, some people know who you are already. And I'm in trouble. You said something to tell me how I can get there. Isn't that amazing? I wasn't even going to see that out as we were leaving now. Nobody was home. It was God directed us to go to
Years ago, I was living in Utah, where I shared time with a girl from Australia. On one occasion, I'd gone to sleep while my roommate relaxed. At about 2 a.m., I was called out to a deep sleep. I no longer called my first name. This step is 2 times. Get up and lock the door. As soon as I was awake, the message no longer was ordered. I was inside. I asked why, Cindy would not leave the door unlocked because I did not want to get up. You didn't want to get up from the cold. The message was far too strong. I got up and turned to my friend who was but I didn't have to check the kitchen door to open it to allow me to find the apartment. I prayed, the crystal was still with the virtual never opened. Was it me or not? I turned the voice and I was shouting. So great was my sense of pain. The voice said, now, around what you were saying. Just as I did, I heard from the alley that human sounding noise like footsteps, and someone trying to turn the door knob. To this day, I believe an angel woke and ordered me, and they guided me to lock that door. Wake me up here? Yes.
That is going back. And we upload all of each testimony on YouTube.
How are you doing?
Walking down the road and they use eye contact with me, very aggressive. All I thought was I was trouble. It's you over my left shoulder, and his whole attitude is get down and he slaps himself on. And the only thing it could have been was Andrew, because his father be nice to me, she would say. Just to see instantaneous like that, the fact that it's over my left shoulder.
think that there's something protecting you, that you'll come in some dangerous situation.
I have seen it.
It happened in my
And that was bad because they were having bad
Sounds supernatural.
Okay, everyone, I think all the tables have now sorted them. So, message number 3 out of the top 10 is what? What is of those 3, which is going to be the least popular, do you think? Or the least frequent?
Oh, you didn't say that.
Well, I did say ordinance.
We haven't really done
We haven't really done that, okay. Well, for your interest, everybody. No, you're fine. So, drum roll, message 3 of the top 3 is speak up. Okay? And those are the Bible readings that refer to that. So can someone from one of the tables read Acts 5, verse 17 to 20 in a big voice? Doesn't really matter, just one person from that table, one person from another table, get ready to read Acts 8, and a third table, someone get ready to read Acts 10, 1 to 5.
Acts 5, yeah?
Acts 5, 17 to 20.
Then the high priest and all his associates, who were members of the party of the Sadducees, were filled with jealousy. They arrested the apostles and put them in the public jail. During the night, an angel of the Lord opened the doors of the jail and brought them out. Go, stand in the temple courts, he said, and tell the people the full message of this new life.
Thank you, Tony. If someone can read Acts 8, 26 to 31.
As for Philip, an angel of the Lord said to him, "Go south down the desert road that runs from Jerusalem to Gaza." So he started out and he met the treasurer of Ethiopia, a eunuch of great authority under the Candidate, king of Ethiopia. The eunuch had gone to Jerusalem to worship, and he was now returning. Seated in his carriage, he was reading aloud from the book of the prophet Isaiah. The Holy Spirit said to Philip, "Go over and walk along beside the carriage." Philip ran over and heard the man reading from the prophet Isaiah. Philip asked, "Do you understand what you're reading?" The man replied, "How can I unless someone instructs me?" And he urged Philip to come up into the carriage and sit with him.
And another table to read Acts 10, 1 to 5.
At Caesarea was a man called Cornelius, a centurion that was known as the Italian regiment. He and all his family were devout and God-fearing. He gave generously to those in need, and they prayed to God regularly. One day, about 3 in the afternoon, he had a vision. He distinctly saw an angel of God came to him and said, "Cornelius." Cornelius stared at him in fear. "What is it, Lord?" he asked. The angel answered, "Your prayers and gifts before have come as a memorial before God. Now send men to Joppa, bring a man back called Simon, who is also called Peter."
Thank you. And the other part of that story is the same Holy Spirit is saying giving a message to Peter at the other side, so that when the man from Joppa arrives, Peter is ready to go with him. And the testimony that goes with all of those, hopefully you've all got the one about the person who was walking into a house as part of the continuing witness training. Hopefully that was all together. So just a little comment about those. Angels, it seems, can appear at night in dreams. and during the day as visions or indeed as people. Sometimes angels come to us and whisper in our ear, sometimes audibly, sometimes in our spiritual ear. Speak a word for the Lord Jesus Christ. And some of those examples, those Bible readings, a Christian, in the case of Philip, was directed to speak to an unbeliever, the eunuch in the carriage from Ethiopia. Other times, an unbeliever may be directed by an angel to seek a Christian, and that was that third reading. Cornelius was directed by the angel to seek out Peter to find out more about Christ. And then that latter also happened to be a case of the testimony, which illustrates this message, so it's very similar to that testimony which goes with it. And if you remember, Jess shared a story of hers some months ago, her experience of speaking on the phone to a lady who was in need. I don't know if you remember it. I'm not sure I've got the details exactly right, but this lady was in trouble and distress and called out a random number, and it happened to be Jess. And Jess shared on the Sunday morning how she was able to help this lady and how God used her in that way. God's angels prompted the lady to reach out, and they directed her to Jess. And they prompted Jess to help where she could. And it was a bit of a double dose of angel activity, just as it was in the case of Cornelius and Peter. So sometimes angels say, speak up for Christ. So listen out for that inner voice which is prompting you, because sometimes an angel may be directing you to speak to somebody. So that's number 3. Message number 2. What do you think message number 2 is going to be? Is it going to be brave, or is it going to be wake up? The most frequent, the second most frequent angel message?
Wake up. Wake up.
You want to wake up?
Wake up.
Split. Be brave. Okay, let's have a look. It's actually wake up. Well done, Tony. It's wake up. We'll work that one out. Why is it? So, hopefully you have got. It's actually 2 readings together, and they make 1 reading. So, can someone read what if they were on a table that nobody has read from? Can you read me Acts chapter 12, verse 5 to 7?
5 to 7. So Peter was kept in prison, but the church was earnestly praying to God for him. The night before Herod was to bring him to trial, Peter was sleeping between 2 soldiers, bound with 2 chains, and sentries stood guard at the entrance. Suddenly, an angel of the Lord appeared, and a light shone in the cell. He struck Peter on the missing?
On the wrist, I think, or on the shoulder, something. Yeah.
And woke him up. Get up, he said, and the chains fell on Peter's wrists.
And I'll continue that story. Then the angel said to him, put on your clothes and sandals. So Peter did so. Wrap your cloak around you and follow me, the angel told him. Peter followed him out of the prison, but he had no idea that what the angel was doing was really happening. He thought he was seeing a vision. They passed the first and second guards and came to the iron gate leading to the city. It opened for them by itself. They went through it. When they had walked the length of one street, suddenly the angel left him. So that was that story of Peter in prison. And we'll unpack that a little bit more in a moment. And the testimony that goes with that is the somewhat unsettling testimony of somebody who attests to being woken up by a very, very, very insistent voice that they had to wake up and go and lock your door. An interesting testimony that was too. Okay, so in that Bible reading, Peter was imprisoned and the church was praying for him. God's people prayed for Peter, and God's miraculous answer to their prayers was to send an angel to rescue him. Peter, in those readings, was rendered speechless by the sudden appearance of an angel. And actually, he seems to be following the angel's instructions in a bit of a daze. He didn't really quite know what he was doing. He wasn't in full control of his faculties. The angel had to tell him, oh, basically, put your shoes on, come on, get up, you know, all of that sort of stuff. In the Old Testament, Lot and his family were asleep, and two angels visiting them woke them up in the middle of the night, and they said, hurry up and get dressed. We've got to leave here because God is about to pour out his judgment upon Sodom and Gomorrah. Elijah was asleep, and the angel came to him and said, wake up and eat. Zechariah saw an angel in a dream. And then skipping to the New Testament, Joseph, who was the stepfather of Jesus, saw an angel in a dream and was warned to get up, wake up, get up, and leave Bethlehem and flee to Egypt to escape the wrath of Herod. So perhaps the lesson we can learn here might be an interesting one, isn't it? Whenever you wake suddenly in the night, listen out and pray, asking God, is there anyone you want me to pray for? Why is it that I've woken suddenly? Not talking about sort of restless dreams, but that sudden waking. Perhaps, just perhaps, your sudden waking is God sending an angel to you with a message to wake up, to be part of his purposes. So, message one, the top, most frequent message, or certainly that the angels say is, be brave. Or another way of saying it, don't be afraid. So it's a positive thing, isn't it? If you're being brave, being told to be brave, it's the same thing as being told to be brave. And then there is only obviously one other very moving testimony about the woman who was a child in hospital and how the angel came to visit her in her hospital bed when she was scared and alone, and it seemed nobody else could really help her. And the angel came and calmed her down, told her to be brave, told her that actually, yes, you're going to lose a leg, but you're not going to lose your life, you're going to keep going. And so it seems that this young teenager lived on to be an adult, and the angel was vindicated. So that angel message is really all about being brave, isn't it? Don't be frightened. So often the angels appeared, and their first words to people, particularly in the Christmas story, is, fear not. Don't be afraid. And I've often thought that the sudden appearance of an angel in your house would cause you to fear, like Mary. Suddenly, oh my goodness, what is this? What's happening? A little bit worried. But actually, perhaps it's more than that. Perhaps with Mary, it was, yes, she was somewhat startled by the appearance of the angel. But Mary was actually going to be going through a really, really hard time. It's almost like a message, isn't it? It's a forewarning. You're going through a hard time, or you're going to, and I don't want you to be afraid, says God, because I'm going to be with you, and it's part of my will and purpose for you. Each of the people were afraid of the majestic sight of a blazing angel standing before them. But each of them was going through, or about to go through, a very difficult period in their lives. Mary would find herself unmarried and pregnant, subject to gossip and scorn. I just realised we missed out one of the Bible readings, and I apologise for that. It's the one that, I did miss it out, but that's not the problem. So, if you imagine if another time that the angel said, don't be afraid, is when he appeared to the women at Jesus' tomb on that first Easter morning. The women arrived weeping, really sad, Jesus has died. And the angel says, don't be afraid, he is not here, he has risen. So they were devastated with grief. And they were really troubled. And the angel said, don't be afraid. In the midst of your grief, don't be afraid. It's going to sort itself out. So, at those times in our lives, when we are feeling the most discouraged, perhaps the most despondent, when we are in the storms of life, just like Paul was in the middle of the storm, which is the reading that we didn't read, that one there, Acts 27, 22 to 24. Did anybody not read that one? Any table not read that? Kath, would someone like to read that? As I've just realised that we hadn't read it.
But now I urge you to keep up your courage, because not one of you will be lost. Only the ship will be destroyed. Last night, an angel of the God whose I am, and whom I serve, stood beside me and said, "Do not be afraid, Paul. You must stand trial before Caesar, and God has graciously given you the lives of all who sail with you. So keep up your courage, for I have faith in God that it will happen just as he told me. Nevertheless, you must run aground on some island."
So Paul was in fairly dire straits at that point in his journey. Paul was in the middle of a terrific storm, which was threatening the lives, not just his life, but the life of all of those in the boat. And God appeared to him and said, "Don't worry, don't be afraid, be brave, you'll get there." So when we find ourselves in the situation of the storm of life, if we're still and quiet and belonging to God and serving God, it could be that you'll hear that message of encouragement to be brave or cheer up and don't be afraid. You see, Hebrews 1:14 tells us that God has sent his ministering spirit to serve those who are heirs of salvation. So angels are there, God has sent them. And it's okay to protect, to pray for angelic protection. It's okay to ask God to dispatch angels to protect you and your loved ones and to deliver you. And finally, Hebrews 13, verse 2 says, "Be hospitable to strangers, because some have entertained angels unawares." Sometimes we may have encountered angels and not even known it. And sometimes God sends us to be his ministering angel instead.